In the middle of the 18th century, before the sun had fully risen, a child in rural England was already awake. Not to learn, not to dream, but to work until their hands bled. This was a world still governed by daylight and seasons. Time was soft, measured by church bells, not machines. Most people lived where their grandparents had lived, working the same fields, breathing the same air, expecting little change within a lifetime. Life was hard, but it was familiar, predictable, human scale. And then the question began to whisper through history: was humanity about to be saved by progress, or broken by it? What followed was not a single invention, nor a single moment. It was a rupture, a chain reaction, a transformation so violent and so complete that it would rewire how humans lived, worked, moved, and even understood time itself. This was the Industrial Revolution, and once it began, there was no return. But to understand the devastation and the triumph that followed, we must first understand the height from which humanity fell. The world before industry was not stagnant. That is the lie hindsight tells. By the early modern era, Europe, especially Britain, was thriving. Agricultural techniques had improved. Trade networks stretched across oceans. Coal lay beneath the soil like dormant power, untouched but waiting. Rivers cut through the land like natural highways. Villages were tight-knit organisms. Work and family were inseparable. A home was also a workshop. Children learned trades from parents. Skill was passed hand to hand, generation to generation. A weaver knew every thread. A blacksmith knew every strike of the hammer. Labor had a face. This was a society that believed effort and outcome were directly linked. If you worked harder, you ate better. If the harvest failed, everyone suffered together. Misery was shared. Survival was communal. And yet, this world carried hidden weaknesses. Britain was running out of trees. Its population was growing faster than its land could comfortably sustain. Markets demanded more cloth, more iron, more goods than human hands alone could produce. The old rhythms were no longer enough. Efficiency became an obsession. Speed became a temptation. This is where the trap closed. Because the greatest strength of this era, its ingenuity, would become its greatest vulnerability. Coal replaced wood. Steam replaced muscle. Machines began to outperform humans not just in strength, but in endurance. They did not tire. They did not age. They did not demand dignity. At first, these machines were helpers, tools, harmless seeming contraptions housed in mills near rivers. But slowly, inevitably, the logic changed. Instead of machines serving people, people began reorganizing their lives to serve machines. Work left the home. It moved into centralized buildings, factories, places where the air was thick with soot, where noise crushed thought, where daylight mattered less than output. The family unit fractured. Men, women, and children were pulled into the same mechanical gravity well. The countryside began to empty. Cities began to swell. What looked like progress from afar felt like dislocation up close. A farmer who once measured his life in seasons now measured it in shifts. A child who once learned by imitation now learned by repetition. Do the same motion, again, and again, and again, until the body breaks or the bell rings. This was not yet hell, but the door had opened. Britain had unknowingly built the perfect conditions for a social experiment no one had consented to. Energy, capital, population, and ambition had aligned. The system was primed. All it needed was ignition. And in the next section, the invisible villain will reveal itself not as a man, not as a king, but as an idea so powerful it would consume everything it touched. The enemy was not a tyrant. It did not wear a crown. It did not issue laws or command armies. It was an idea: efficiency. At first, it looked harmless, even noble. Produce more with less. Reduce waste, increase output. In a crowded island nation under pressure, it felt like survival. But efficiency has a hunger of its own. Once unleashed, it demands constant sacrifice. The chain reaction had already begun. Coal was the first domino. Britain sat atop vast seams of it, black and dense with stored sunlight from ancient forests. When burned, it released energy unlike anything human muscle could match. But coal needed engines. Engines needed pressure. Pressure needed steam. And steam needed containment. The steam engine did not arrive fully formed. It evolved, slowly, ruthlessly, each iteration more powerful, more reliable, more dangerous. What began as a solution to pump water from mines became the beating heart of an entirely new system. Steam severed labor from nature. A water mill depended on rivers, a field depended on weather, a steam engine depended on nothing but fuel. It could run day and night, winter and summer, indoors, anywhere. This changed everything. Factories no longer needed to follow geography. Geography began to follow factories. Buildings rose not where life was pleasant, but where profit was maximized. Towns warped around smokestacks. Streets narrowed. Housing multiplied without planning, sanitation, or mercy. And into these spaces poured the displaced. Enclosure laws had already pushed small farmers off shared lands. The countryside could no longer absorb its people. The city promised wages, survival, a future. What it delivered was something else. Inside the factory, the logic of the machine ruled absolutely. Tasks were broken down into fragments so small they required no skill. Pull the lever, tie the thread, replace the spindle, over and over. Precision replaced mastery. Speed replaced understanding. Humans became interchangeable parts. Children were especially valuable. Small bodies fit between gears. Soft fingers moved quickly. They were cheaper, quieter, easier to break. A child could work the same hours as an adult and complain less, until their spine curved, their lungs darkened, or their hand vanished into iron teeth. There were no safety standards, no limits, no concept of too much. If a machine could run longer, it did. If a worker collapsed, another took their place. The system did not slow, it only consumed. This was the invisible villain at work. Not cruelty for cruelty's sake, but optimization without humanity. Cities like Manchester transformed almost overnight. Once modest towns, they became industrial organisms. Smoke replaced clouds. Rivers turned black with dye and waste. The air burned the throat. Soot settled on skin like permanent shadow. Death became ambient. Disease spread through overcrowded housing where entire families slept in single rooms. Water was contaminated. Waste piled up. Life expectancy fell, even as production soared. For the first time in history, technological advancement and human well-being diverged, and no one was in control. Factory owners chased profit because competitors forced them to. Workers endured conditions because hunger left no choice. Governments hesitated because industry meant power, wealth, empire. The machine fed itself. Some resisted. Artisans smashed looms at night, desperate to stop the bleeding. They were labeled enemies of progress. Criminals, Luddites. Soldiers were sent to protect machines over people. Iron was valued more than flesh. That choice echoed. Time itself was reprogrammed. The clock replaced the sun. Bells dictated movement. Being late became a moral failure. Productivity became virtue. Idleness became sin. Life was no longer something lived. It was something scheduled. And yet, from the outside, it looked like triumph. Goods became cheaper. Markets expanded. Wealth accumulated at unprecedented scale. Britain surged ahead of the world, exporting machines, ideology, and inequality across continents. The revolution was working, just not for everyone. By the time the consequences became impossible to ignore, the system was already global. The gears were locked. The smoke was rising. The rhythm was set. And in the next section, the machine will fully accelerate, spilling out of factories and into the streets, the homes, and the bodies of millions who had no say in its creation. Once the system locked into place, it began to move on its own. Factories multiplied like cells. Smokestacks rose higher. Rail lines cut through countryside that had been quiet for centuries. What had started as localized experiments hardened into an industrial rhythm that no individual could slow, let alone stop. The machine was no longer confined to buildings. It spilled outward. Cities became magnets. Manchester, Birmingham, Liverpool, names that once meant little beyond their region swelled into industrial giants. Every week, more people arrived than housing could absorb. Brick went up fast, poorly. Back-to-back houses with no drainage, no light, no privacy. Entire families lived in single rooms. Disease thrived. Cholera, typhus, tuberculosis. Illness was not an interruption to work, it was part of the environment. And still, the factories demanded bodies. Workdays stretched endlessly, dawn to dark, sometimes longer. The steam engine did not care if it was night, or Sunday, or winter. The machine dictated the pace, and humans adapted or broke trying. Accidents were constant. A moment of distraction could mean a crushed arm, a torn scalp, a body pulled screaming into spinning gears. There was no compensation, no pause for grief. If a worker died, their family lost income instantly. Widows and children returned to the factory within days, because starvation was faster than mourning. This was the first impact, not sudden, not explosive, but grinding, relentless. The countryside felt it too. Farms mechanized slowly, unevenly. Those who could not compete sold their land. More refugees flowed into cities already choking. Traditional village life eroded. Old social bonds dissolved. For the first time, humans lived among strangers at massive scale. And something psychological shifted. When people stopped knowing who lived next door, responsibility weakened. When suffering became invisible, indifference followed. Misery blended into background noise, like the hiss of steam or the clatter of looms. Children grew up inside this noise. Education became secondary. Survival came first. A child who could earn a wage, however small, was valuable. Childhood shortened, sometimes vanished entirely. Bodies developed crooked. Minds narrowed to routine. Yet, paradoxically, society grew richer. Cloth flooded markets. Iron built bridges and ships. Railways collapsed distance. Travel that once took days now took hours. Food distribution improved. Consumer goods multiplied. The world felt faster, smaller. From a distance, this looked like success. But the costs were localized, concentrated, hidden in working districts and slums that polite society avoided. The same railways that carried goods also carried smoke, noise, and division. A new class structure hardened. Factory owners accumulated wealth at a scale previously reserved for nobility. Workers owned nothing but their labor. A new word emerged to describe them: proletariat. People defined entirely by work. Tension thickened the air. Strikes erupted, sometimes spontaneous, sometimes organized. Workers demanded shorter hours, safer conditions, the right to rest. The response was often force. Police, soldiers, laws written to protect production over people. Progress had chosen sides. Even reformers struggled. How do you humanize a system built on speed? How do you slow a machine without losing everything it promises? Each improvement felt too small, too late. And still, the logic spread. Other nations watched Britain and followed. Factories rose across Europe, then across oceans. The industrial model exported itself like a virus, adapting to new environments, consuming new populations. By now, the transformation was irreversibly. Humans had reorganized their entire civilization around production, around growth, around output. The machine had become the environment. And the most dangerous part was this: it felt normal. People were born into it, lived inside it, could no longer imagine alternatives. The smoke, the clocks, the schedules, the exhaustion, this was life now. The revolution had succeeded, but in doing so, it planted the seeds of something darker: resistance, ideology, and a reckoning that would redefine power itself. In the final section, we will watch society fracture, fight back, and unknowingly create the modern world, forged not just by machines, but by human reaction to them. By the time society realized what it had become, there was no rewind. The machine had not only transformed labor, it had reshaped power. Governments that once feared unrest now depended on industry for wealth, weapons, and dominance. Reform moved slowly, dragged forward by scandal, disease, and death too visible to ignore. Investigators interred factories. Writers documented slums. The suffering could no longer be dismissed as isolated misfortune. The system was exposed, but not dismantled. Instead, it adapted. Child labor laws appeared, cautiously. Work hours were limited, reluctantly. Sewers were built after epidemics proved that filth respected no class boundaries. These reforms did not come from compassion alone. They came from fear. A sick workforce was inefficient. A starving population was unstable. Human welfare became a variable in the equation. But beneath these surface changes, something deeper was forming. Workers began to recognize themselves not as individuals trapped by fate, but as a collective force. Unions formed. Meetings were held in back rooms and pubs. Ideas spread faster than ever before, carried by cheap print, railways, and shared anger. The machine had created its own opposition. Strikes shut down production. Protests filled streets. Sometimes they succeeded. Often they were crushed. But the illusion of harmony was gone. The industrial world was no longer just producing goods. It was producing conflict. Out of this friction emerged new ideologies. Capitalism hardened, defending ownership and expansion. Socialism rose in response, demanding redistribution and dignity. Class became identity. Politics became personal. The struggle over who benefited from progress would dominate the centuries to come. And still, the machine advanced. Electricity followed steam, oil followed coal. Factories grew cleaner, faster, keener, but no less demanding. Work became specialized. Lives became compartmentalized. Home, labor, rest, repeat. The separation was complete. Humans no longer worked to live. They lived to work and to consume what work produced. From this system came miracles. Medicine advanced. Life expectancy rose. Literacy spread. Travel shrank the world. Comfort became accessible to millions who would once have known only survival. But the cost never vanished. It only changed shape. Alienation replaced exhaustion. Anxiety replaced hunger. Speed replaced silence. The machine no longer crushed bodies as visibly, but it pressed constantly against the mind. The legacy of the Industrial Revolution is not smoke or steel. It is momentum. A civilization that cannot stop accelerating without fearing collapse. We inherited its rhythms, its clocks, its assumptions. We schedule our lives in units it invented. We measure worth in productivity. We feel guilt when resting. We call it normal. And yet, every burnout, every crisis of meaning, every moment of feeling replaceable traces back to that first decision to prioritize output over humanity. The revolution never ended. It simply became invisible. What began in the workshops and factories of Britain reshaped the entire planet. It built the modern world and locked us inside it. We are surrounded by its comforts, powered by its systems, haunted by its consequences. Progress delivered everything it promised and demanded everything in return. Anyway, I'm Albert, watching the past so that we can understand the present. And together, we keep history reborn. I'll see you in the next era.